So it was always my mom, my sister, me. And then later it was Brian, Dusty, me. And then later it was Josey, Dusty, me. And then there's the Father, Son, Holy Ghost. Um, Three is just a powerful number. There's the Trinity. There is um, triangles that, to me, are one of the most foundational shapes, right? Um, so, in thinking about that, I didn't even realize until I was telling somebody else a story about Dusty when he was sick today, and it popped in my mind that there's also three um, faith stories that happened during Dusty's illness, which is really crazy. Um, or is it, right? So there's the before, during there's the before his death, during his death, slash dying, and then there's after. So I'm going to do my best to get through these. I'm sorry it's taken me so long to even get to this point. Okay, so um, Dusty's got cancer. This is 2002. We had every hope of having him healed. I had no doubt in my mind that he would be healed. I had all the faith in the world. Dusty, Josey, me, we were all 100% like Christian believers. Jesus heals. Our church was praying for us. We had so many people, all of my friends from St. Louis, from Hannibal, from this town, all praying. And I knew that the power of prayer was going to heal him. There was no doubt, like none, seriously. And every time that the doctors would say, this isn't working, or his cancer's gotten worse, and it's spread, and we need to do surgery, and we need to remove this tumor that's surrounding this, and every time I would say, okay, do it, we got this, and I would tell Dusty, we've got this. Because I truly believe we did. And I would think each time that was the last time he was going to have to go through it. Just one more time. So it would have been probably March. It was right around Josey's birthday that they said that, no, was it March or was it February? I think that might have been February. Is somewhere in that area. Anyway, Dusty had gone to art therapy, which was at Children's, and he was always in and out of the hospital. There was not a 2-week period for that year that he was not having to go back to the hospital for transfusions or whatever. He had like 3 rounds of chemo. He had radiation. He had a bone marrow transplant, which was extremely difficult. He had 3 kidney shunt surgeries. He had the Broviac surgery, of course, because that's the first thing they did. He had the colostomy bag. He had some of his intestines removed a couple of times because of the tumor growing. He had an allergic reaction to antibiotic that made his throat peel on the inside, and so he would choke, and I would have to, suction the skin off the inside of his throat so that he would be able to swallow. And a lot of that, we did not have Josey at home. We had her playing with her cousins at her aunt's because we were trying to take care of Dusty the best we could on a little bit of sleep. We had all that stuff going on at the hospitals, and she was so little that I thought that was the best place for her to at least be able to play and feel like a kid and not have to see all of this stuff that her big brother that she adored was going through. So, needless to say, it was not easy for any of us in the family to go through, especially Dusty. So I did believe that he would be healed. So anyway, back to February, March. The doctors have a meeting with me because while Dusty's in art therapy, and told us that there was nothing else that they could do. That we had tried everything that we could try. This was after St. Jude's had even sent like a concoction that they thought might work, for no cost, no benefit to them, other than to heal a child that had cancer, which is why I am such a big proponent of that. So anyway, Dusty was not going to be able to be cured, and they informed us. The doctor cried because he really cared also. His name was Dr. Hughie. He was a wonderful, wonderful person, great doctor. But he was heartbroken when he told us. And to be honest, I was furious, shocked, angry, everything you can imagine. And I knew I had to get out of there for a little bit. Dusty was okay. He was doing his art therapy. According to his mind, for the last 30 minutes to an hour before I talked to him, he believed also that he was still going to be okay. So I had to process that, and I had to figure out how I was going to break the news and tell him that he was not going to be with us. So I left. I left the hospital, and I drove to a familiar place, which was the Hampton exit. So I went to the Hampton exit where I used to work, and went into this gas station, and I just went in and I got a Pepsi and I got a Reese's. I don't know. I didn't need it. Didn't care. I don't know. That's what I did. So anyway, I'm in line, and I was like the fifth person, maybe more, back. This Jamaican guy comes out of the back room, goes to the other cash register and opens it up. And he didn't point to the second guy or the third or the fourth or any of whoever it was in front of me. He didn't point to any of them. He pointed to me, and he said, you come over here, And I didn't care because I just wanted to get out. So I went over there, put my stuff on the counter, and he said, you have to pray with me. And I said, no, I'm not. I had cussed God, said F you to God, told him I hated him. I was never praying to him again. I don't believe in him. He can rot in hell. I was screaming on the way to the gas station. Everything I could think of, I was screaming at him. And I was done with him with a capital D, He was dead to me. He was dead to me, not my son. So this Jamaican guy says, you know, you have to pray with me. It's like, no, not happening. You can check me out. He said, in this Jamaican accent, no, child, I can't check you out. I've been told you have to pray with me. And I said, I'm not praying with you. You can fuck off. That's what I told him. I said, you can fuck off. I'm not praying with him. Check me out. This is ridiculous. And he said, child, I don't know what you're going through, but God doesn't put anybody through things that he hasn't been through. You need to pray with me. You got to pray with me. You can't leave till you pray. And I said, you have no idea what I have to go through in the next hour. I have to figure out how to go back and tell my baby that all the suffering and pain that he has gone through is for nothing, and he is going to die. And I have to figure out how to make that okay for him. And he said again, God doesn't put you through anything that he hasn't gone through. And I just started crying. And he said, can I pray with you? And I said, yeah, because I was broken at that point again. So he put his hands over mine at the counter and he prayed. And he prayed for Dusty, and he prayed for me. And he prayed for all the other kids that were at Children's Hospital. I don't know how to explain it, but literally within 10 to 15 minutes, God took me from a done believer. I wasn't an unbeliever. I was a done believer. He took me from that to a believer, and he turned me back around where I needed to be, got me straight, and then he sent me on my way, right? So I went back to the hospital, and I broke the news to Dusty, and it wasn't a good or a fun conversation at all. There's no way that can be at all, but I can say that we did make it into as fun or positive experience as we could. We talked about what his first girlfriend was going to look like in heaven, what heaven was going to look like. He drew diagrams and maps. So artistic. He was so artistic. And I still have all of them. I share them on his anniversary, usually. But he has maps of all the different islands and locations that heaven is going to have, that he was looking forward to being able to travel to and see. His first girlfriend was going to be Courtney off of General Hospital, because he thought she was absolutely beautiful. His first vehicle was going to be a Jeep, gold Jeep. So we turned it into as positive and something that he could look forward to when he got to go. So the next week, when we went back for art therapy, I went back to the gas station because I wanted to tell that person thank you. I could have gone back to that hospital angry and giving up, and that would have hurt my son. It would have hurt my son and his soul, and he wouldn't have been as happy and as looking forward to being pain-free and being in heaven where there was no sorrow and no sadness. And he knew he wouldn't miss me. He knew he wouldn't miss Josey or his dad. He knew that he would, within a blink of his eye, have 50 years gone by. So he knew that he was going to be okay there, and he would not hurt anymore, and he would not cry anymore. So for him, he was looking forward to it. So anyway, he's at art therapy, and I went back to that gas station. The guy was not at the cash register, so I asked to speak to the manager that was there. So the manager came out, and I said, I need to leave a message for this guy. And he said, okay. I said, he helped me a lot when I was there last week, and I said, I want him to know how much he helped me and my son. He said, all right. And so I gave the description. I said he's Jamaican, he had dreads, he had like the rainbow kind of colored shirt. When he came out, he had this heavy accent, super sweet, nice person, and the manager said, ma'am, we've never had anybody work here that fits that description. I argued with him for a little bit, because anybody who knows me knows that I'm usually right, especially when it comes to things like that. Yeah, you do. I talked to him. He's here. So he's like, no, we've never had anybody that fits that description. He asked the other guy, do you know what she's talking about? And the other guy was like, no, I don't. He's like, that was last week. I don't even remember yesterday. So did he exist? I don't know. Was he an angel from God? I don't know. I believe he was. I believe he was, because had that immediate thing not happen, Dusty, Josey, all of our lives would have been completely different. That would have been a fallout moment there. So that was the first thing. Second thing that happened was he is in a coma. He's in hospice at home, because I was not having him in a hospital anymore after all that happened. Other than to go in for a quick transfusion, that was it. Dusty wanted to be at home where he felt safe, and I was doing all of his medical stuff at that point anyway. I was just as good as a nurse as far as changing his lines and cleaning his lines and giving him his medications through his IV and cleaning his portal and all of it. I did all of it. Colostomy bag, cleaning that, putting new colostomy bags on. I mean, that was not, at that point in time, that was my daily ritual. I mean, I had no problem with any of that. So hospice would come twice a week just to check on us, make sure we didn't need any new supplies, document where he was at. and he started to deteriorate. He went into the coma. His body was shutting down, which is part of that process. They had warned us about it and kind of tried to mentally prepare us for it, which I'm not sure how you can mentally prepare for that, but you do what you got to do for your children, don't you? We always do what we have to do for our kids. So he's in the coma, and they at that point had said, it's a matter of very short amount of time. His body is shutting down, and he had already at that point lost his lower bodily functions, and the brain is always the last part to go. So we knew it was close. I'm so sorry for the beeping. It's part of living downtown, unfortunately. So anyway, he was done, last part of that coma part. He was a stubborn little boy. He has got that Irish blood running through him, Irish Scottish, and that little baby, I believe he was bartering with God. He woke up 3 times. 3 times, again, a number I did not think about, but yes, he did. He woke up 3 times. The first time, he woke up and patted the couch by him and said, "I want him here," and was talking about his dad. So his dad sat down by him and talked to him, and I believe that this was Dusty's way of letting him know that he loves him, and I think there was a message in that was just for him. And then the second time he woke up, and it was maybe, I don't know, into the day, night, but he shouldn't have woken up once, let alone 3 times. Second time he woke up, he was crying, and he said that he did not want to leave me, and he did not want to leave his sister. And he was almost inconsolable. So I was rocking him and telling him that I loved him and I didn't want him to leave either. Because I've never lied to him. Might have curved things a little bit and said, "Oh, it'll get better," or "It's not as bad as what you think it might be," or "I'm okay." I would lie to him in those things, but they were more curves because it was all technicalities, but I couldn't lie and say I wanted him to not be there. So he's crying and saying, "I don't want to leave you, Mommy. I don't want to leave you, Mommy. And I don't want to leave Josey." And I was rocking him back and forth, sitting up on the couch, just kind of like this. He was sitting up right here, and I was sitting on the edge of the couch. And so he was crying, and I was rocking him back and forth and telling him, "It's okay, baby, and I don't want you to go either, but it's gonna be okay." And he calmed down, and he laid back down. So at that point, I think, again, something broke in me. And I couldn't really deal with the fact that I was having to do this, you know? So I was crying pretty good. Pulled myself together. And got his medications and did his morphine and Ativan, and baby was on so much. He was on morphine, Ativan, OxyContin, oxycodone. He was on so much. I can't even imagine how he was able to wake up, let alone have a sentence that he was able to form. Anyway, so gave him his meds and read the Bible a little bit, and just sat there, you know. And it was a couple of hours, and then he woke up again, started crying again, and he says, I have to go soon, Mom, and I don't want to go. I said, what, baby? And he said, again, he says, I have to go soon and I don't want to go. I knew at that point I was being selfish. I didn't really care that I was being selfish, but at the same time, I loved him more than watching all that pain. And I don't know, something, when he says, I have to go soon, I told him, when he comes back for you, baby, I want you to grab his hand and I want you to hold on tight. And I want you to run with him. And he's crying. And I'm crying. And I said, don't look back. I want you to go and don't look back. Run with him. And he said, okay, Mommy. And he laid back down. And I ran out the back door. And I started throwing the patio furniture in the backyard, screaming. And my mother-in-law at the time came out and said that he went with me. He took his last breath about the same time that I hit the door. When people say that it's easier in time It does not get easier in time. What it does do is get to be something that you get used to, and you just live with it because it's part of who you are. It's your identity. I can tell you right now that part of me is physically missing out of my heart. I have no doubt of it because it hurts physically, and when I talk about it to this extent. And I'll also say that I hope people appreciate that the kids that are in their life and they put their phones down and they make memories with them, because you are not guaranteed to have time with your kids. Kids that are placed in your life, you are supposed to love and protect and make happy memories as much as possible. You are not supposed to ignore them in any way. I know it's hard to do nowadays, but you definitely need to appreciate the kids that are in your life. So that was the second thing that happened. I believe that God gave us that gift. I'm not sure mentally if I would have been able to not have had that memory to hold on to. And I hope that every parent that has ever had to lose a child has something where they have a very special bond type memory, whether it's a talk that they remember or something that they gave them or something that the kids made for them, or something that just has that special memory attached to it. I'm sure as a parent you do, because that's what we do. We attach special memories to those little smiles and the gleams in their eyes and their creativeness. I have a lot from both of my kids, and I'm so lucky that I had that. The third memory was the third thing that happened. Went through a really, really bad depression after that. That I would pretend, that everything was okay, and I would pretend I've got it all together, or I thought I did. And I would pretend that I'm this super person that, even though I'm grieving, I can, do all these things. And truthfully, I just wanted to die. It was too hard. The value that I felt was not there at all. And it actually has just recently, in the last 10 years, really gotten there, where I feel like I do count, and I don't wish that I was gone. It is purely for the fact that I love my daughter to the extent that I do, that I have not ever before the last 10 years done something that I would have regretted. And all I can say to that is I'm really, really grateful that that she was my motivation to not leave her. I didn't want to put her through that. As tempted as I was, I'm really grateful to Dana, who stopped me the one time that I was going to. But that's a story for a different day. So, my last memory that has to do with faith and Dusty, closely connected at least, is I was in a super big depression afterwards, and I mean really, really bad depression. And I wanted to write a poem for him, but I couldn't find the words. And I knew that I had written when I was younger, and I wanted to write one again for him. I just wasn't mentally there. And so I really was upset about it, because that was my final gift to him. I wrote a poem when I found out I was pregnant with him, for him, and I wanted to write a poem to put on his tombstone. Couldn't find the words for the life of me. So anyway, months went by, and then I woke up from a dream, and in the dream, I was in a pit of mud that was like up to here, and it was a pit of mud. It was a big one, probably as big as this living room, and I was sinking and I couldn't get out. And then I looked, and in the distance, like 30, 40 feet, I could see the back of a little boy. And his hair looked kind of like Dusty's. And I saw him, and I could just kind of see, and I thought, surely to God, that's not him. He's not supposed to be here. And I started like pushing my way through this mud. Made it to the side, and at that point in this dream, I was crying and trying to call out to him, but I couldn't talk because the mud was so constricted around my throat that I couldn't get anything out but the tears and the breath to try to get to the edge of this pit that I was in. And I got to the edge, and Dusty was on the edge of it, like leaning down, giving me his hand, and he was pulling me up. He is little. He shouldn't have that kind of strength to pull me out of that mud, and he did. He was able to pull me out of it. And once I got out, he kind of backed up a little bit, and I had dropped to all fours. So I was on my hands and my knees, covered in mud, crying and trying to talk. And I was trying to touch him. I just wanted to touch his face. And I got up close enough, and I was able to touch his face. And I remember it felt exactly the same. And he's crying, and he's kind of leaning down a little bit. And I was like leaning up, and he had his head down, and I was able to smell his hair. The kind of, you know how when your kids would go and take a shower and you knew they weren't using shampoo, they're just getting their hair wet. He used to do that all the time. So he'd come out of the shower or the bath or whatever, and I would go get over here, and I'd smell his hair, and you can tell by the smell of the hair whether he had shampooed or not. And I get back in there and get shampoo in your hair, you know. So I smelled his hair, and it smelled like the shampoo. It was clean. So I'm like, oh my gosh, it smells like him. It feels like him. I was like, how are you here? And he is saying, Mom, you gotta come with me. Mom, come here. You gotta come with me. and I can't comprehend that he's there. I'm still crying, and I'm still like trying to I can't even stand up. I can't even stand up at all, let alone anything else. So he had walked over to this like edge of this like rocks. It was like rocks on top of each other. And he had sat on this ledge and had put his feet over, and he like patted by him, and he said, "Come over here and sit down. I have to talk to you. I have to show you something." And I was still so overwhelmed that I am seeing my baby that I crawled over to the rocks, the ledge. I crawled over to him because I was so overwhelmed that he's there. And I got up on the rock ledge and put my legs over, and I'm holding him. You know, I've got my arm around him, and I'm touching him, and I'm holding him, and I'm rocking, and I'm like, "I can't believe you're here." I have my eyes closed. I'm like, "I can't believe you're here," and I'm just smelling his hair, and I'm feeling him. And he says, "Mom, open up your eyes. You have to see this. You have to see this." And I opened up my eyes, and I was looking at him, and he's got the same blue sparkly eyes, and his face is so sweet, and he's my baby. He's my boy. And he said, "Look at this." And I looked, and down below, and I mean far down, we're talking 30 to 50 stories maybe. It was very tall. Down this whole great big wall of rocks and stones like stacked up on top, there was flowers that were growing out, flowers and vines that were growing out all down this wall that we were sitting on. And then when I looked out, there was like ponds and trees, and a really pretty like stone creek that was running down through the middle, and it was like meadows, flowers all over, butterflies all over. There was birds, there was bunnies, there was deer. I believe there was other animals like dogs, cats, but I can't vividly remember them. I know there was the bunnies and the birds and the butterflies. And there was people. There was people hugging and lifting kids up, and walking together and holding hands, and like I was looking down on like this utopia almost. And he said, "Mom, you have to stop being so sad that I'm here. Look at this." I said, "I can't stop being sad that you're here. I miss you, baby." And I start crying again. He said, "I miss you too, but look at this." And I looked, and I thought, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. I can't be sad that he's here. I just can't. So I kind of accepted that, what he was saying. And I said, "I just miss you, babe." And he said, "I know. I love you, Mom. But I'm good. You gotta go be good for you and Josey." And I'm still crying. I said, "Okay." And he said, "Okay, I love you. I'll see you later." And then it was like he like literally disappeared. And he disappeared, and then everything else immediately disappeared. I woke up, I sat straight up, and I started writing. Immediately at like 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning, don't know what time it was, but it was like right in the middle of the, when you're supposed to sleep. And I wrote the entire poem out that is on his tombstone. And again, it was a gift from God. 100%. All of these things are gifts from God. They cannot be scientifically explained. You can say, oh, she's brainwashed from church. Possibly. But scientifically, he should not have woken up 3 times during his coma. There's things that have explained, there's things that have happened that cannot be explained. And I do not choose to take them for granted. I see things for me, how they are, which is gifts from God, in however you want to believe them. So those are the 3 memories that I wanted to make sure that I shared before anything did happen to me, just with life, period. I will share one other thing that is a very important memory through his illness, and that was when we found out that he wasn't going to make it. One of the things that I did was I told him that he could pick his birthday, any birthday he wanted, and that was his birthday, and he took it serious, like really serious. He knew he wasn't going to make it to his 12th birthday, and he thought very hard. Did he want to be 16 where he could drive? Did he want to be 18 where he could be considered an adult and do whatever he wanted to do? Did he want to be 21 and be able to drink? Like, he legitimately thought about all these things and like reasoned it out. He decided that he wanted to be 16. So we made him a Yu-Gi-Oh cake and we put 16 on it, and it was thrown together last minute. We had a clown magician from Shriners come, and he did magic tricks for Dusty, and we made it as special as we could, as simple as we could, and as quick as we could. The best part though about that memory was when I tossed him the keys and I said, all right, we gotta go take you driving. He said, what? I said, yeah, gotta go teach you how to drive. So we went and got in my Jeep that he absolutely loved because it was the first vehicle we had, and first vehicle that I had that was my own, that he, Josey, and I were able to go and do things in, or go to the park. We always had to like he would ride his bike. I would push Josey in the stroller. So we walked everywhere. Anyway, so I took him to the church parking lot for our church that we always had been going to and that I still go to, and I taught him how to drive while he was on morphine, OxyContin, oxycodone, Ativan, juiced to the gill. The boy had tolerance that was out of this world because he'd been on it for so long. And I taught him how to drive. And then I said, okay, what do you think? And he thought it was just the coolest thing that he was able to drive. I said, all right, take me to the grocery store. So he took me to the grocery store, and I made an excuse and went in and grabbed a pack of gum, or I don't remember, loaf of bread, something stupid. And then I said, now I have to go to the post office, run me by the post office. So he drove me to the post office, and then I went in and came right back out, and I was like, take me to a gas station. So he took me to the gas station, and he thought he was the biggest, coolest guy, And then on the way home, he drove, and he turns down Virginia Street, and he was coming from the hospital side. And as he turns, he's so busy waving at all his friends on the street that he's driving the car, the Jeep, that he almost hits the fence that was there. But he didn't, so he saved it in time. And he thought that was pretty neat. So that was one memory. And then I got one more. I probably have like 15,000, but this will be the last one, I promise. This is the last of the stuff I want to make sure Dusty's remembered for. Um, so the last thing was we were on our way to the hospital to Children's for radiation treatment, and he made the decision at that point, because at that point we knew radiation was just slowing the growth down. We knew it wasn't going to be cured. We knew he was going to pass, but the radiation was just slowing it down and prolonging him leaving us. So we're heading over there for that, and the closer we get, the more I can tell he's getting upset, and I'm like, holding his hand, because I always held his hand when we were driving back and forth, because that's all I could do, and I wanted that physical closeness for him, because I knew he was scared. I was scared, and it wasn't even me going through it. So as I was holding his hand, I was like, "What's going on, buddy?" And he started crying, and he said, "Mom, I don't want to go." And I said, "What do you mean you don't want to go?" And he's crying so hard that I knew I had to pull over. So I pulled over on the side of, it would have been 44. Yeah, 44. Pulled over on the side of 44, and I'm holding him, rocking him, and I'm like, what do you mean you can't, you don't want to go? I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "I don't want to do this anymore. Can I just be done?" So then, of course, I started crying, because I said, "You know what being done means if you don't go get radiation anymore?" And he said, "Yeah, I know, and I don't want to do it anymore. I just want to go to heaven." I said, "Okay, all right, babe." And then I thought, that's gotta be the hardest thing to have to say out loud as a boy. I gotta turn this into something happy, I gotta make this something for him. I said, "Well, babe, we're down here. We're down here now. What do you want to do?" And he said, "I just want to go to the zoo and get an ice cream." So I said, "Okay, let's go do it." All right, that's what we're going to do. So went to the zoo, got a wheelchair. I pushed him around in the wheelchair. We looked at the animals. I got him an ice cream. And it was one of the most peaceful days that I think he had towards the end, which was what I wanted him to have. Ugh. Just thought of another one. I have to tell you guys, I'm so sorry. So, before we knew he wasn't going to make it, he's getting something done. I believe he was at a chemo treatment at Children's. I was actually in a doctor's meeting talking to them about the chemo treatments that they were doing. And I go back to the hospital room, to his room, and he's not there. And I was freaking out. So I went to the nurses and I said, "Why is he not back from chemo?" And they said, "Oh, he is back. He was in his room." I said, "He's not in his room." I said, "Where's my son?" They're like, I don't know. So they're freaking out. I'm freaking out. He's not in his room. He's not in the bathroom. He's not on the floor. He's not in the art therapy room. We don't know where he's at. And so I am getting ready to go down to the cafeteria, because I thought, okay, maybe he went down the cafeteria for something. And the elevator doors open up, and he is trying his best to get the IV pole over the little gap from the elevator to the floor. He's trying to push that over, but you can tell he's tired because he's having a hard time even moving it. So I ran over and helped him with the IV and a pole, and I'm like helping him into his room, and I'm like, where were you? Where were you at? And he said, I had to go down to the gift store for something. And it was right after my birthday. I remember that because it was January 23rd on my birthday that year. Um, he had to have kidney shunt surgery, and I was by myself in the room, the surgery room, hoping to God that he made it through this kidney shunt surgery okay. And I remember thinking, please don't let him die on my birthday. And nobody was there, and I was scared. And anyway, so he, I guess, had felt bad about that because he knew I was by myself, and this was like a week or so after, because it wasn't my birthday. He felt bad for me, I guess, that we hadn't done anything for my birthday. And he had gone down to the gift store and had bought Benny, which is the monkey that hangs from my rearview mirror. He had bought 2 keychain things, and so we put that on Benny for necklaces. And then when we got in the car to go home in the Jeep, he hung it up for me because I wanted him to do it. And so Benny has been with me in all of the vehicles since then that I've ever had, which have only been 2, but still. So that was a pretty interesting story that he went down and did that because he was thinking of me, and he is a sweetheart, which leads to one more. I'm not going to feel bad about it. I'm not going to say I'm sorry because I like talking about him, and I think people need to know these stories after I'm gone, and I don't want them to forget about him. So the other story is in church when we were there. It would have been March 15th-ish. It was Josey's birthday, and Dusty felt bad because he was sick. Again, nothing he could need to feel bad about, but he had a big heart. He was my reflection as far as like my spirit walking around. Josey is my spunk. She's my attitude, my heart. Dusty's my spirit, if that makes sense. But anyway, so Dusty struggles at that point to stand up because he was very weak. So he's like pulling himself up. And Lee Fenton, I remember Lee Fenton said, I thought for sure that boy was going to ask for prayer for himself. And Pastor Randy calls on Dusty and says, yes, Dusty, because that's what you did back then. You stood up. He says, yes, Dusty, what do you need us to pray for? And Dusty said, it's my sister's birthday. Can the church sing happy birthday to her? So the church sang happy birthday to Josey that year. That was Dusty's special present for her that he could do. So, and he always used to win her prizes from hospital bingo. He'd never pick out stuff for himself. He always went home with a Barbie or a stuffed animal or a craft or something that he would get for his sissy because she needed something to make her happy too. So anyway, I have no idea how long this has gone on. I have no idea if it's going to make any sense, if you can even hear through my blubbering. I have no idea if I am repulsive in this video at this point, and I really don't care because this is the first time since he's been gone that I have put these things on video, and I'm not redoing it because it was 100% pure and God-led and Dusty inspired, and anything that is God-led and Dusty inspired is perfect. Thank you if you watched all the way through.